I wear a lot of hats here at the Sheriff's Office and with the detention center. I'm involved in a lot of the processes. I assist with reviewing investigations. Sometimes there may be information that I don't think is in there that I think is necessary. So I will ask that be done. And so I take a very active role at Sheriff Bryant's request to assist with these things. In addition, as I'm sure you know, agencies get sued. You know, we're not going to sugarcoat that. People like to sue government entities. And so while we want to be as open and transparent as we can, we also have to be cognizant of statements that we make. And so what we want to make sure of is that everything we say is accurate, 100% accurate and correct. Because of the nature of this incident, people, I'm sure, want to ask questions. They want to question what law enforcement does. And that's their right to do that. But what we hope to accomplish in part by calling you together in this way is to educate you a little bit about what we deal with every day, why sometimes things that you may see in your normal everyday course of life may not appear to be appropriate. However, I think when you can take a look at exactly what our staff deals with every day and what their responsibilities are and what tools they have at their at the ready, I think you will understand much more clearly and be able to give a much more accurate and full description of activities that take place here at the Sheriff's Office and at the detention center. So that being said, again, we want to reiterate, we're coming back to you just as the Sheriff promised. He promised when he was in here for the media open house a couple of weeks ago. For those of you who were present, you heard that, recorded that. It's never been his intent to hold off and not give any answers or let the public know what occurred here in the detention center. Typically, when we have these types of investigations, we don't like to come forward until all the information is available. Anyone who knows how to conduct a proper investigation knows that sometimes you have to hold off on stories, hold off on answers when you don't have all the information. So it's always our intent to make sure that not only our internal investigation is concluded, but also that all other pending investigations are concluded. A big part of that is we want to make sure we don't miss anything. We want to make sure that we are, again, complete. We are coming forward today because of a lot of questions and because of the toll it's taking on a lot of our staff. Our staff is being questioned, or their motives and actions are being questioned, and it's taking a toll on them. And so we wanted to go ahead and not take any more time so that we can allay some of the allegations that have been made, and also just to give you the information that you need. Obviously, the public wants to know what happened in the detention center. At this time, currently, the criminal investigation is still ongoing with regard to the crimes that actually occurred on the evening of October the 18th. You may wonder why, because the person that was charged with those crimes is no longer available to be prosecuted. Well, while we're talking about the death of Joshua Grose, we also have to be mindful that there are families out there right now who are dealing with the questions and the concerns, the unanswered questions, to the bizarre set of facts that happened on October the 18th. These family members need closure and they need answers. And so regardless of the fact that there will be no prosecution, we want to make sure that we have as accurate a picture as we possibly can of a very puzzling incident that occurred. So that is ongoing. The detectives are continuing with that. They're having assistance by other agencies to try to map out what happened and try to piece it together as best they can. In addition, the autopsy findings, that report has not been completed. It's my understanding that that probably won't be completed for a few weeks, maybe a couple weeks. That report will then go to the coroner, who will have to determine and report cause and manner of death. She's given a preliminary ruling of blunt force trauma as the reason for Mr. Grose's death. However, the manner of death has not yet been determined. Once that is concluded, that will go to SLED, who is conducting the criminal investigation to determine whether or not anything criminal happened here in the detention center with regard to the death of Mr. Grose. Once all of that is compiled then into SLED's investigation, they will conclude their report and turn that over to the solicitor. So it's very possible that it could take 3 to 4 or 6 weeks before all that's concluded. Because we have what we believe is a full and complete picture of what happened that night, we feel comfortable going ahead and trying to give some closure to some of these allegations that are going on, and also just to let the public know how this inmate died in the facility. We feel confident that once those findings are made by the solicitor and SLED and the coroner, that will be consistent with what we've determined has occurred. We feel confident that it will be consistent with what you'll see today. With regard to our findings on the investigation, we have determined that the actions taken by detention officers with regard to Mr. Grose were not only within our policy guidelines regarding use of force and use of restraints, but that the actions by our detention officers exemplify the behavior that the sheriff expects with regard to the treatment of detainees in our facility. In addition, they used ingenuity to try to protect Mr. Grose from his self-destructive behavior. Before I go into the particulars of that night, I'd like to just lay a little groundwork here so that we're all clear on what the climate is here within the detention center facility. And I apologize as far as the length of this goes, but we want to make sure that we give a full and accurate picture. We've got a lot of video. We're going to show a portion that shows the incident. We have video available of all the hours that he was in the detention center, and we can make that available for viewing. With regard to video and a detention center, we have the utmost requirement to provide for a safe environment. To do that, it's very important that the detention center remains as, trying to think of the right word to use for it. It's very important that we maintain the security within that facility. Some video would show door entrances. Releasing video can show officers' habits, the way they, or routines, I should say, as opposed to habits. But their routines in checking doors, making security checks, where they go in, where they come out of, how we actually deal with an inmate when they're in a combative mode. That creates a security risk because once that video is out there, we don't have any control over where that video goes. I think it's ironic that the sheriff used the exact words that I was going to quote him on in my notes here. The sheriff always says that our job is not to punish or reward. He said it ever since I've been there, ever since I've been here. That's the job of the courts. And that is our overall guiding principle here at the detention center. You have to understand as well, we don't choose our inmates. Our inmates come into the facility with their own histories, their own prior engagements with law enforcement, their prior family histories, family dynamics, economic woes. They come in our doors with the same things that all of us face every day. They also come in with mental health issues, and they come in with medical issues. I think that it's pretty common, or pretty well known, that the mental health hierarchy, for lack of a better term, across our country is woefully inadequate. We have a number of people who are homeless who are mentally ill. We have a number of veterans who've returned with PTSD, and we have a number of inmates who are in our facility probably in great part because of acting out because of mental illness. So that is a big problem in this country, and it's a big problem for us to try to function within. Most of the information that we get from most of the information we have on inmates regarding mental health issues or medical issues are self-reported from the actual detainee. When they come in, they're booked. We do a pre-medical screening, and then a more elaborate medical screening is done with our nurse. So most of the information we have regarding any health or mental issues come from the inmates themselves, or the detainees themselves. Sometimes we get family members who will provide information or call and give us information, and sometimes we're able to follow up with treating physicians, but many times there are individuals within our facility who don't have a common treating physician. Again though, first and foremost, the detention center has to provide for the safe housing of detainees and for the safety of our officers and staff. We are not a hospital, and we are limited in what we, the wherewithal that we have within our facility to deal with many issues. Because of that, we utilize the resources that many families have to rely upon. We have to rely upon the mental health system in everyday life. We have to, sometimes the best alternative for us, if we have an inmate who cannot, we can't successfully maintain, is if their charges will allow it, and they wouldn't be a danger to the public, we try to get them to try to assist them with being bonded out. Sometimes that's our best alternative. That wasn't an alternative for either Mr. Waddell or Mr. Grose. As we go through this video, what you're going to see is common behavior that our officers deal with every day. Our officers are cursed at, they're spit upon, they have urine and feces thrown on them. It's hard to imagine, but it happens. It happens very commonly. Inmates or detainees will smear feces and food on the walls. They have to deal with some detainees who are mildly disruptive and a little bit belligerent, all the way up to individuals who are very combative and self-destructive. Our officers are mooned. Our officers are exposed to genitals by the detainees intentionally. They'll intentionally masturbate in front of the officers, knowing that they can be seen and doing it on purpose. So when our officers come to work every day, not only do they deal with their regular tasks, the responsibilities for counts and moving inmates, making sure they get fed, making sure they get their showers, making sure that all the razors come back in when they're allowed to use razors to shave. They also have to deal with these types of issues. That's common for them every day. The use of force is allowed to maintain order and to protect the detainee. It's allowed to protect other inmates or staff, and we, by policy, will only use the amount of force necessary to bring the situation under control. When a detainee is actively aggressive, officers are taught to use a variety of soft and hard empty hand techniques to gain control or compliance. Officers are also taught that they will repeatedly use those techniques until compliance is gained. As we will view on the video later, you will see these techniques used, and you will see them immediately cease when compliance is gained. You will also see those same officers begin providing a caretaking role for Mr. Grose, tending to a self-inflicted head injury, cleaning spit from his body where he's been spitting at them, and covering and recovering his genital area to protect his dignity. With that being said, we'll move on to the actual incident at hand. I realized that that's a very difficult video to watch. I've been pretty explicit with you in describing the things that we encountered that night and the things that our officers encounter on a routine basis. I feel real confident in saying that with the exception of our detention officers that are in this room, I don't believe there's anybody in this room, me included, who could do the job they do and do it as well as they do. It is totally different from an enforcement side. Enforcement, they take them into custody, they bring them in, and they're not caring for those people's day-to-day needs and requirements. And sometimes that care requires that we use force, and but then more often than not, it requires that we take care of their daily needs. And I hope that you've seen some of that in action. Due to the fact that the other investigations are ongoing, we're not going to sit here and answer questions in an armchair quarterback manner. I believe we've fully answered what was seen on that video. We believe our policy is appropriate. We believe it was followed. Can we take some things from this moving forward? I believe I addressed that as we were watching it. We've already talked about trying to explore what other kinds of devices we might be able to have installed or utilized to maintain the location of a restraint chair when someone continues to be combative. We are, as I indicated as well, we've already had preliminary meetings with the officials at Piedmont Hospital. We're exploring other possible protocols that can be put into place to better equip officers and EMS as well in handling inmates that continue to be combative in that nature, to include some medical sedation, those types of things as they become available.